going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching, and welcome to another Planet Zoo speed build. If you're new here today and this is the first video that you've caught on the channel, my name is Savannah and welcome, glad to have you here. Today we're working in Hakea Wildlife Park and have finally gotten around to completing our dingo habitat. I apologize it's taken so long, but somebody, and by somebody I mean me, gets distracted very easily and kind of moved on to other projects when this one was halfway done. But it's okay, it's all right. We've finished, we're back now, and I'm very excited to show it off. Also, I will apologize for the fact that it's freezing in my house right now, and I'm wearing a nice warm down vest, but it's very loud, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear when I move around and wiggle, making lots of noise. So I'll try to keep the movement and the wiggling to a minimum so I don't get too distracting with the scraping of my vest. So like most of my projects, this one started off with a reference picture, and at first I had no idea what animal I was building for. At this point I had already built for the koala and the kangaroo, if we're talking about Australian Pack DLC animals, so it was either the cassowary or the dingo. And I feel like that's how most of my projects start off, to be honest, is that I kind of just have a reference picture or a general idea, don't necessarily pick an animal for most of them, and then just kind of see where it takes me. So this one was no different, but like I've said before, I love all the pieces in the Australian DLC pack that came out, and love building with like the color palette that they have, and these wood panels that I've made these beams out of are just my absolute favorite. So I feel like it all came together really, really well. The reference picture that I was using for this one was actually a super ultra modern, if I remember right, because I don't have it in front of me right now, there were some wood pieces, but mostly like concrete and grays and whites and black coloration. So this build is a lot warmer. Oh, you know what? It might have had some grays too, because I remember thinking that the corrugated pieces would fit perfectly. Anyway, overall, this build that I've put together is a much warmer build than the reference picture, but that kind of fits in with our area. I wanted to strike some sort of balance between modern, like you guys I'm sure know, I'm a huge fan of modern builds, at least building modern builds. I've said before, my personal style is very not modern, and things that I have in my house are not modern. But as far as building in Planet Zoo, I seem to be drawn to that modern aesthetic. So I wanted to get some sort of like happy medium between modern and that outback style recycled kind of look that you get when you typically think of an Australian themed area, or like the overly themed areas in theme parks or zoos where they're trying to make you really understand the fact that we're building in an Australian area. So kind of in between of that. So this outpost overlook area is definitely kind of the modern feel, and then when we go around to the front at the very end, I kind of wrap up the area and bring in some of those rusted pieces and recycled stuff and stuff like that. Now, I know that the Dingos and the Australian DLC are somewhat old news, especially now that the new aquatic pack has been announced. So they're most likely not in the forefront of everyone's minds, but because I want to get this video out and I've had it kind of on the back burner for so long, I'm going to talk about them nonetheless. Dingos, I think, are actually really cool animals, and although they're really commonly referred to as being Australian animals, which they are, don't get me wrong, they obviously live there, they're actually also found scattered through parts of Southeast Asia, and there's still a lot of controversy around their original origins, but a lot of scientists actually think that they're not native to Australia, that they were introduced from Southeast Asia, that they either came over on, shipping boats, or some people I think that they walked across a land bridge that used to exist between the continents. But in either case, I found that really interesting, is that, they're very commonly known for being Australian animals, although they might not have originally been from there, and in fact do exist in other parts of the world, on totally separate continents. In some parts of Australia, though, dingoes are actually thought to be helpful in controlling small animal populations. You know, they're predators, and they're going to be eating mostly small mammals or lizards or some birds, things like that. So as far as pest control goes, in some areas they're very helpful. And I say in some areas because in other areas they're actually seen as pests themselves, and actually as a danger to sheep and some cattle, which obviously would cause a lot of problems for farmers if you're trying to raise those hoof stock, and you know, wild animals come in and kill them for food. So in certain parts of Australia, I know it is actually legal to hunt and kill the dingoes if they're found within those regions where farmers are trying to raise their livestock. But in other areas, they're protected on different preserves and things like that. The dingoes in Australia are not listed as threatened or endangered. And in fact, most of their threat, at least to my understanding, comes from the fact that they readily breed with domesticated dogs. And it's caused a lot of hybrid offspring, a lot of hybrid puppies that are, you know, half domesticated dog and half dingo, which can be problematic because, you know, domesticated dogs are really used to being around humans, which will make the offspring want to be closer to human populations, which is then more of a danger to the sheep and the cattle that the farmers are trying to raise. But also in the fact that dingoes, I think, typically only have like 1 litter a year. Domesticated dogs can have up to 2 litters a year, so they breed twice as fast, and then they still have some of their parents, their wild dingo parents, innate aggressive behavior, so it makes them much more of a dangerous domesticated animal, so to speak. So I found that really interesting, and if you guys ever want to look up these facts yourselves, I don't claim to be the end-all be-all expert on every single animal, but I do usually get a lot of my facts from a site called Animal Diversity Web. It's a really quick and easy site that's got a lot of facts about a lot of different animals, and a site that I'm actually published on for writing about a few species myself. And find it just very easy because they've got habitat distribution, you know, conservation status, all that kind of stuff for just like a brief, quick overview. I don't spend a whole lot of time delving into a lot of research on the animals when I'm building in Planet Zoo because, of course, we do have to remember it's a video game. But like I have said before, I'm an animal person. I love animals. I work with animals. So I just find it very interesting and wanted to share some of that with you. Anyway, that all aside, I know the aquatic DLC has been announced. As I'm recording this today, we've gotten snapshots of the penguins, the caimans. Did we get the terrapin? I think they announced too. So I'm really, really excited to get into that one. And I will say this will probably be the last Australian themed build for a while, because when the new aquatic pack comes out, myself, like a lot of other people I'm sure, are going to be diving right into that one and hitting the ground running with lots of builds. I am very excited in the sense that we did complete the penguin habitat in River Rock Zoo, and we will now have actual penguins to put in there. So when that pack launches and I get my hands on it, I will definitely implement that and put some penguins in there and see how we need to kind of adjust the habitat to make it fit their habitat needs and things like that. But I'm so excited to get to see them dive. That's one of the biggest things in the pack that I think I'm most excited for is, you know, in the Australian DLC, they added the animations for the marsupials coming out of the pouches, the kangaroo and the koalas. And when they were born, they would actually be in the mom's pouch. But they've added for the gray seal, the giant otter, and the king penguin, right? Yeah, the king penguin all have diving animations, along with the saltwater crocodile, which we already had. And I think that's just phenomenal. You know, we've said for a long time they have volumetric water in the game, and it would be amazing if these animals could actually use it, and now they can. So I'm really, really hoping that Frontier continues that and brings the diving animations to like the polar bears and some of the other animals that we have in the game, like the gharial can't dive right now, at least to my knowledge. So that would be phenomenal. I'm so excited to see that from them. I'm so excited to see, new game-breaking mechanics, or game-changing mechanics rather, that just bring something new and interesting to the game. We've all built underwater viewing areas. A little bit of a tongue twister for me, don't know why. Underwater viewing areas, and now we actually get to see our animals use them. It's just such an exciting thing to be able to build for in game that the animals will actually use. I'm also really excited because, at least from the looks of the sneak peek pictures that Frontier has been releasing, it looks like we're getting a lot of really usable zoo building pieces. It seems like this new aquatic pack, it isn't specifically geared towards a certain region, and they've got a lot of that harbor style going on. I think we've seen possibly a new wood panel set in some of the screenshots, and a lot of rocks, which I know a lot of people are saying might be flexi colored, which would be amazing if they are. So I'm super excited to get into that. But a lot of the pieces in the, they shared a big screenshot of like a penguin habitat and all those rocks and things. They look very zoo-like an actual zoo would have, and not like natural in the wild objects, which are great. Don't get me wrong, as somebody that loves to build natural and realistic looking habitats, you've got to come to the understanding, or the realization, or acceptance rather, I guess, as I search for the right word, that, a lot of these things in zoos are recreations of natural things, and a lot of it is man-made for sanitary reasons, for cost reasons, for whatever it might be. And, as best as we try to get them to look exactly right, a lot of zoos have things that are just very clearly fake, but, trying to resemble real-life things. And I think those rocks do a good job at that, as they look like they would be concrete molded or facade pieces, easily cleanable, but also still looking kind of natural for the animals as well, to give a good feeling of what the environment would be like for them. So I can't say enough good things about the aquatic pack. I feel like it's a long time coming. Obviously, in my last video, the aviary that I did of the original Zoo Tycoon aviary, I was saying how much I want birds. Don't get me wrong, I still want birds, but I am in no way disappointed to find out that the DLC is an aquatic DLC and that we're getting swimming animals. I did obviously have a preference for birds, and I do hope that they come to the game, but I will take aquatic animals. Super, super excited for that. So definitely subscribe, stay around. I'm going to be covering the aquatic DLC very heavily, hopefully, when it comes out, and building for each of the animals. I've got some ideas on where I want to add them. I'm actually most excited probably for the giant otter, and actually the caiman. I think the caiman, the little pictures that they shared are super cute, and I love the pattern on their jaw. They look adorable, and I'm so excited. I hope that they are just as small in game as caimans are, the dwarf caimans are in real life. And I'll be excited to compare them with the saltwater crocodile or the gharial, and just see how much smaller they are. I also hope that like their hitboxes, or their traversable area, is small, in the sense of like they can walk through small openings, and use all the rock pieces, and we can make little like basking areas for them and things. So super, super excited just across the board to get my hands on that. So that being said, like I did say before, I have some ideas on which animals I want to put in which parks, but if you have any suggestions whatsoever, if you're a super big fan of one of the projects I've got going on right now, whether it be River Rock Zoo or a Hakea Wildlife Park, although this park that we're working in right now is more of a desert area, so I don't know exactly how well some of the aquatic species would fit in here, or Sakura Zoo, our kind of lower budget zoo that we've got going. If you've got any ideas on which animals you feel might fit which zoo better, do leave those down in the description. Not in the description. The description's for me. Comments are for you. Go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. And I would love to hear any suggestions. If you have particular pictures that are great for inspiration, you can head over to the Discord and drop those there in the Planet Zoo channel. I would love to see concept art, real life zoos, anything of that nature, because for the next 4 days. It comes out on the 8th. Yeah, I'm going to be very heavily diving into lots of concept art and zoo pictures, just building up all my inspiration because I want to come up with some really awesome ideas to share with you guys. So if you have anything for me, it would be greatly appreciated, and I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. You know, I did say in my previous videos a couple times, I'm not somebody who's kind of lost interest in the game. I am very much still excited about playing the game, about building in the game. I have way more ideas than I have time, and that is still the same. I definitely am still excited to play in the game, and now with new animals, I don't know how I'm going to build for all of them, because I still wanted to do a cassowary habitat, but that one will just have to wait, because I know everybody's going to be excited about the aquatic DLC animals, and I am too. All right, I'm gonna loop back around a little bit and talk about the actual build that we're doing, aquatic pack excitement aside. With this, after I got done with the overlooking area, that suspended building part that is the main building of this habitat, I decided I wanted this one to be where you could get multiple views of the animals from different areas. And what I should have done actually is, after building this and putting the animals in, I realized that my scale was a bit big. Planet Zoo and the Planet games in general are just kind of known for having bigger scale pieces, and building in small scale is a bit difficult. So I should have brought in the animals, or at least a keeper or something like that, to check my scale. It turns out okay, but I do have to raise up the ground a little bit so it doesn't look like the Dingos are like 50 feet below the guests and you're looking into like this massive canyon. So again, I think it turns out okay, but I do have to do some adjusting. So the path goes all the way out of this suspended building, so guests can actually go all the way out to the very end, although being the Planet Zoo guests, when I played the game and let them walk around, that was like the last place they wanted to go. They wanted to look around on the edge of the habitat instead of going in my beautifully built building, which, you know, whatever, to each their own. You can view them from further away. That's fine. Not bitter at all that they're not using the building that I built, but that's okay. The guests will do what the guests do. So I added that, and then I also add another one on the other side eventually. And then keeping in mind that I do want this to be like a park and a project, I loop the path all the way around just in preparation for if any other enclosures are added here. I'm not quite sure where I would add them, but I wanted the pathing network to be kind of set up so that I could kind of build off of it. And then you'll see here, I cut it out because it was a last minute change. When I first started building the area here, I started with just a sunken in rectangle and was going to build off of that, but then it was looking too square to me. It looked too square, too boring, too many hard edges. So I kind of cut this corner and I lined the straight edges with those rocks and the bar fencing that I built that you can see just there, but then finished it up with this natural looking rock. And I thought it was a really good mixture of the different kind of ways that you can make a back wall of a habitat. And then I do put, obviously, we haven't gotten to foliage yet, and as I say, the trees, the foliage always makes everything better, and I pretty much hate everything I build until I put those trees and that foliage. I almost said it wrong again as I was trying to correct myself. But you get the picture. Trees, bushes, plants, things like that makes everything better. And the green, just especially in this desert biome, the greens and the textures from the plants and stuff just make it look phenomenal. So the idea is that back here where I'm placing these rocks and behind the wall, the guests aren't able to look into the animal. This would specifically be for when we're ready to build elsewhere, that they walk around it, and this kind of gives a backing to another enclosure, which obviously I don't have any plans for, like I've said, but that would be kind of the idea. And then now you can see here we're getting to some plants, and I always kind of try to go back down to the guest view and look at the the areas that the trees would be blocking, the ways that it would frame the views, things like that. Now, part of that is because, you know, I do create YouTube videos as content, as you're watching now, and screenshots are a big thing so that I can promote and show you guys what the enclosures are going to look like. But two, also keeping in mind, if we are trying to make something that's realistic, sightlines are a very real thing that we'd want to keep in mind if building a zoo, so that, you know, people would be standing in a certain location. You want to make sure that they can see certain things or that things look aesthetically pleasing. So I definitely try to keep that in mind. And then as I was starting the foliage, I remembered that they are animals, and although they can go underneath the building, I wanted them to have like a specific shelter space. So I just kind of throw together this very easy, simple kind of put together shelter. I think I was actually watching a stream from the Dutch Lion on Twitch, which if you haven't checked him out before, he is wonderful. I really enjoy everything that he builds and watching his streams. But he had built, and oh my gosh, now I forget, I think it was saltwater crocodile, somewhere in a desert area. He had built shade structures that were very modern using these pieces, and my shade structure looks nothing like it, but that's kind of where I took the inspiration from. So definitely, if you haven't checked him out, do go do so. You won't regret it. So that's where now I'm putting in the second viewing platform, and then I get to some signs later, and I do keep the inside of the building fairly simple. One thing that I had struggled with in building previous habitats is trying to fill in every little space and having, you know, there be something everywhere you turn, and where to a certain degree I think that that's important. You also do have to remember that these, you know, zoos, theme parks, you know, places where large crowds go are going to have some sort of open space just because they'll be filled with people. So while it's empty and there's no guests in the park, it looks a little strange, but once the guests come in and start walking around, it looks a lot better. So I try to remind myself of that, especially out of the front of this building. And then going into the building, I put some implied benches because there's not actual benches hidden in there, so the guests won't actually use them, but implied benches, some signage. I copy over the palette information board on the wall that I had used for the koalas, copy that over here, and put that on the wall because I just like that piece so much, and I thought it looked really good. But then that's pretty much it. Throwing some rocks down, throwing some more foliage down, some of those weed grass pieces, and just kind of filling everything in to just make it look natural, I guess. And then I do end up, like I said, doing the path all the way around, but also putting in a fence so that the guests aren't supposed to be able to view through it, although they still did. After I put the guests in, they walked straight over to the backside of the enclosure, stared right at the fence, and pointed at the animals as if they could see them. And then I guarantee if I would have checked, their little thought bubbles would have been like, this view sucks. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're staring into the side of a panel, of a wood panel. And not going where you can actually see the animals, so duh, the view sucks. Anyway, guest frustrations aside, again, clearly can you see I was having some issues with them on this build, that they just weren't cooperating with me. But in a sandbox world, when this is pretty much just built for the speed build, I won't spend a whole lot of time playing in this park, so that's okay. But yeah, this is the fence here that I created real quick, and it's just something super simple that's not a complete divider, so you still can kind of sneak views through, but is meant to kind of tell people like, hey, this is not where you're supposed to look. Go to the open viewing area. Then over here, this is back in front of the enclosure. I actually wanted to create, but I ran out of time, like a wallaby habitat or some sort of other small animal that would need just a really, really small enclosure, not this big open thing, but one of those little filler species. As you're walking around a zoo, you've got certain animals that are just kind of like meerkats is a good example of that. They've got a small enclosure, and it's just kind of like on the way to go see the lions, you're going to pass by the meerkat, you know, that kind of thing. So thinking of doing a little implied habitat there. With that, guys, I don't have too much to say. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Do stick around, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. Like I said, we will be heavily covering the aquatic pack when that drops, so super uber excited about that one, and I would love for you guys to join along. Any questions, feedbacks, or comments you can always leave down in the comment section below. If you want to join the Discord and have a chat or share ideas, happy to have you there. The link is also in the description for that. Until then, I really hope you enjoyed. There are some cinematics at the very end, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!